They referred to me as a gold digger. I said wasn't suitable for their price listen. The Whitmores believed I may be crushed by billions, however, this is what they were unaware. My strategy was different. Andy now owned half of what they constructed. I did it this way? If you've ever been undervalued due of who you this narrative is for you, strike that click the subscribe button and let's explore how their rejection became my greatest challenge. Triumph. I'm Kesha. And I've been 5 years. I used to be just another executive assistant at a downtown tech startup Chicago. My dreams were larger than my income, but I was advancing in my career, spreadsheet by spreadsheet. I never thought that going to one industry conference would completely transform my life on a Tuesday morning. I first seeing the third across James Whitmore packed conference center. He wasn't similar to the other outfits in the place. You are aware of fecund, those who interrupt you in meetings and behave as though they are making money, more intelligent. James was unique. Heterally paid attention when I discussed market patterns. And when I corrected him, he grinned instead based on a tech statistic of being combative. We devoted the entire meeting conversation. And by nightfall, too was aware that I was in danger. Not because Hugh was wealthy, despite the Whitmore name buying gap lead plaster to half of the structure's intensity, but because I found him amusing, actual not. The kind ones you give, but laughed here your supervisor. When he requested my phone number, I nearly declined. I'd had enough tailies about affluent men and their games. But I was moved by something in his gaze. Take a chance. For 6 months, we maintained a modest connection. According to James, he desired to learn more about me without his interference from relatives. And to be quite honest, I was okay with that. I had looked up theaters enough aware that they weren't fecund of greeting someone like me with arms wide open. Old money, old customs, outdated biases. However, James persisted in once they had me, his family would adore me to understand me. Kind dude, yet as gullible as hell. The evening he brought me home at last to get to know them. It took me 3 hours to get all set. I went with an outfit that was conservative, nothing overly ostentatious. I looked into their commercial ventures, their charitable endeavors, even their memberships in golf clubs. I was prepared for anything, or so I believed. The Whitmore mansion covered 5 acres. Inside the most upscale area of town, as James arrived to the circular driveway, replied, "There," and squeezed my hand. I should have known that I would love you, at that moment. This individual had never encountered actual hardship in his life. Victoria Whitmore herself answered. The door, Nostif, which I subsequently discovered was purposeful. She wanted to assess me, personally. She was all that I anticipated. Flawlessly arranged gray hair, everything is designed, and a smile that never made it to her eyes. She looked me up and down and said, "Kesha." She treated me like a piece of furniture, thinking about purchasing. Dinner is very lovely, was an excellent example of passive hostility. James's William Whitmore father, who hardly acknowledged me, other from inquiring as to what my father did for labor. I mentioned that he was a mechanic, and Phi could hear the quiet for a very long time. The grandfather's timepiece is running in Theckerwriter. James's sister Carolyn kept making brief remarks on how it must be fascinating to work for others. Individuals. As though she had never worked in her life, which realistically she most likely hadn't. James attempted to guide that discussion to more secure subjects, however. His family had a plan. They inquired regarding my schooling, my family's context, my goals with their son. Each query was intended to remind me I wasn't supposed to be in their world. And what do you know? It was successful. But by the time dessert came, I was about twine height. However, Victoria forced her to largest error. She began to speak. On the significance of familial legacy, it was done to protect what had already construct. Throughout decades, she discussed breeding and bloodlines similar to our stalking about racer horses. Additionally, something snapped within of me. You're definitely, yes, I answered, putting my fork down. Legacy is crucial. It concerns what you construct, what you produce, and what you abandon. I appreciate that, Yofamly. Victoria seemed happy, believing she had at last communicated with me. That's precisely why I intend to construct me. The talk ended abruptly. There. James seemed perplexed. His Carolyn's parents appeared irritated. She appeared to have swallowed something bitter. But for the first time I felt clear all evening. These folks believed they could scare me into going for a stroll. Away. They were unaware of their identity. Handling. After 2 weeks, Victoria phoned me personally. Not James, she wanted to have coffee together, only the two among us. I anticipated what would happen, but it went nevertheless. She picked a classy bistro. In her community, the sort of location where the cost of a latte is higher than moss lunch for folks. She immediately went to the point. I like you, Keisha, she told a falsehood. With ease. I think you're a pretty girl, however. James has obligations, anticipations. His future spouse will have to conform to our world. Comprehend our lifestyle. She crossed the table and slid an envelope. This ought to assist you in beginning your own way. I examined that envelope and felt something that I had never felt before. Previously, not the heat, but pure, concentrated wrath, explosive kind that forces you to speak our sorry. The calculating, frigid kind you are dangerous because of that. I took it open. $50,000. They believed they could purchase me. Like an issue that needed to be resolved. Mrs., I muttered. Whitmore, as I slipped the envelope. Back. Thank you for the gesture. However, I'm not available for purchase. But I'm willing to bargaining. She raised her eyebrows. I'm sorry. You wish to discuss heritage? Let's discuss legacy. Ivy completed my investigation on your family's company empire. Very good, particularly in light of how you obtained a few of such homes from the 1980s. I saw her face become white. I'm Nodium come to ruin everything. I'm here to construct anything, either with or without your acceptance. That evening I began creating phone calls. You see, the whites were unaware of was the fact that I hadn't been employed as unexecutive assistant since I was unable to take any other action. I had been studying, observing, and researching how prosperous individuals worked. I had been saving all of my money, making wise investments, and creating a network of people who are truly admired my intelligence. I gave my David a buddy who worked in commercial property. I gave my previous Akadik, who was now a shop owner investing company. I gave my cousin a call, Marcus, who founded his own IT business from nothing. Nevertheless, I told them something. I was prepared to strike. Though my initial finding was that The Whitmore's wealth was not as stable as they played the part. William had taken some chances, investments over the last many years, and they had a narrower cash flow than they wished for everyone to be aware. Their property, although the empire was magnificent, it was also held in a hilt position. They were rich on paper, but in practice cash deficient. The second thing I discovered was that a number of their real estate purchases from the 1980s were dubious at best. Nothing gunlow, but unquestionably immoral. They had made advantage of intimate knowledge and political ties to purchase properties that were going to bear a zone for business purposes. The vendors were unaware that their territory was going to become 10 times as valuable as when they first sold it. For it took me 3 months to construct my lawsuit as well as my assets. I initiated my own consultancy business that focuses on assisting small companies manage commercial estate transactions. My very first customer was a business that sought to construct a new office block adjacent to a property the Whitmores were attempting to grow years. I assisted my client in obtaining half the price of the White's land presenting. James couldn't understand my abrupt shift in his career, but he was also pleased. I adore how driven you are. As I worked late one evening, he replied me laptop. It will be necessary for my family to recognize that you will never go any place. If only he had the whole truth. Myth's second big change was more intimate. James had been giving clues regarding mints of marriage. Yet I could see he was awaiting approval from his family, since that blessing would never materialize, and made the decision to handle things myself. Hands. I said, let's allopy, one morning. During breakfast. Just us this weekend. No major production, no family drama. What do you say? James's expression brightened like Christmas morning. Really? You would like that? I said, I want you, which was its true. The rest is simply noise. What travelled to Vegas on Saturday and received wedded with two people in a little church seeing strangers. It was flawless and private, as well as every aspect of a wedding ought to be. Additionally, it was strategicalutstance, but James didn't have to understand that section. When we dialed his family with the information, the blast was instantaneous and remarkable. Victoria, I heard her scream so loudly via James's mobile. William made a threat to entirely cut James off. Carolina said that I had imprisoned her brother and that the union would not endure. However, the problem with marriage is this: Etha's legal rights. As James' wife, I now had the right to half off whatever he obtained or earned during your union. Additionally, because James held substantial portions of the family business, thus I had an interest in whether they approved of the Whitmore Empire. I saved time, whether I liked it or not. Festive, James attempted to smooth eye. Was busy getting things over with his family. Growing my company. I made use of my nudies to land through marriage better deals, larger clientele. I wasn't choosing the Whitmore name for trading. I was cautious about it, but I was unquestionably in use of the access it provided. Inside, after 6 months, my consultancy business had expanded from a one-woman business to a group of 5. We were working on transactions worth millions, and I was constructing a reputation for being able to complete tasks. The Whitmores observed every of this with increasing concern. However, there wasn't much they could do. At that point, I took my most audacious action to date. I engaged a private detective. I said for me it was simply out of diligence that I had to comprehend what I was dealing with. However, I knew in my heart that I was searching for leverage when I discovered it. The patriarch of the family, William Whitmore, had treated me as though I were filth, been having a sexual relationship with his secretary for 3 years. Not just any affair. He would rent her an apartment downtown, purchased a vehicle for her, and even paid for the elite school her kid attends tuition, while lecturing me all about legacy and family values. I could have that information crushed him. One, give the appropriate gossip writer a call, and his union, his standing in the neighborhood would have been completed. However, that would have been emotive and responsive. I had to be tactical. Rather, I convened a meeting, each and every one. Victoria, William, James, and Carolyn. I arranged it at a neutral site, a meeting room at a hotel in the heart of the city. I desired for them to leave their domestic territory, outside of their comfort zone. I once remarked, I have a proposition. Everybody was seated. I'd want to believe. Nth partnership, the family company, and Noten aggressive takeover. I'm prepared to spend $10 million to acquire a 25% share. It was very quiet in the room. Next, William burst out laughing. $10 million. Do you know what this is, Kesha? How much is the firm worth? Around $40 million, depending on in the previous 3 years of your finance assertions. I quietly responded, which by public record since you reintegrated. Your earnings have been lowering. The ratio of your debt to equity is alarming. Additionally, you had to postpone up on a number of houses. You need a financial boost, and I'm provident. Victoria had a pale face. How are you aware of our financial situation? Declarations? I work as a consultant in business. Right now. Remember, I'm supposed to be aware of these items. I pulled my briefcase open and taking a folder out. I have a comprehensive evaluation of your business's financial position as well as my suggestion for going forward. I moved copies over theatable to every one of them. You are free to take your time going over everything. However, I should note that I had already obtained letters off 3 significant renters want Toto rent a place in your downtown attributes. The problem is that they will only indicate whether the structures have been updated to contemporary norms. That will be expensive, around $8 million. James was he looked at me as if I had never been seen. Where did you acquire $10 million, Keisha? The same location where your relatives receive their cash, my love. Prudent financial decisions and excellent timing. I returned my attention To his parents, I am not present to accept anything from you. I'm here to assist you in creating. I would like a seat at something larger, but table. William was looking through me suggestion, his expression becoming more distressed by every page. This is actually, it's quite thorough. I don't anything halfway, I responded. The query is, are you open to considering me as a partner, or do you want to go on? Are you having trouble with your financial flow? My last card was played at that point of course, there is an alternative. I may just bide their time till James inherits his shares, after which I will assert my rights. As his spouse. However, that apprehensively hostile, don't you consider? Victoria clattered her cup against she placed her saucer down. Are you endangering us? I'm going to give you, I said, choose. Cooperate with me or workle around me. However, I'm not going in any case. Any place. It took 12 weeks. William attempted to denigrate me by 15% of the total. I retaliated by 30%, and brought up the tenant letters with him. Victoria tried to include provisions that would insist on me leaving if James and I ever separated. My attorney added some wording, safeguarding my investment in spite of me marital status. Ultimately, we decided to give me 25% of the business. On the chief operations officer's position. I would be in charge of the property management. And divisions for growth. As the family kept financial control and legal issues, it wasn't all of that. Everything was a lot, but I wanted everything. Greater than what they had intended to offer me. Soon as I signed the documents, I felt it was something I had never encountered before. Real power. Not the resulting power from resources or contacts, but the authority that results from securing a spot at the table by use of intelligence, strategy, as well as pure willpower. Maya's coup, the first thing I did was employ a diverse group of property managers and developers. My second step was to put in place extensive remodeling initiative for every owner assets. The third thing I did was I would negotiate their rental agreements. Said, along with 2 additional that I had been working in silence. After a year, the revenue for the business had grown by 40%. All of our properties were leased out. For the first time in decades, we had ground purchased 3 and entered 2 new marketplaces, more structures. The neighborhood company I was included in the journal as one of their 40 under 40 up-and-coming talents. Victoria still hardly talked to me during family meals, although Shekel didn't dispute the outcome. Carolyn had reluctantly acknowledged that perhaps I wasn't entirely worthless in company. William had begun requesting me viewpoint on important choices, but had continued to complain about it. James was thievery proud. I was aware of your uniqueness. When I first met you, he said on evening as we went over the quarterly reports. However, I was unaware that you were this outstanding. Your relatives believe they were, I said. I'm getting a gold digger. Cuddling up on the sofa next to him, they got a gold miner instead. However, the true triumph occurred 2 years later when we recognized the business's finest fiscal year in its history. The country club hosted the festivities, where I had previously been treated as an outsider. I was now the honored guest, the one with whom everyone wanted to speak. The person who changed a struggling family enterprise into a prosperous business. I was discovered by Victoria on the patio overlooking the city where now a large number of our homes stood tall and successful. Keisha, she said, her it was a gentler voice than I had ever heard, to owe you an apology. I looked at she was waiting. I was wrong about you, she went on. I was mistaken about your goals, your strengths, your prospective assertiveness of membership in this family. I allow my biases to influence my judgment, and he apologized. I accepted the apology. However, you must comprehend something for me. It never required your blessing to be deserving. I had always been deserving. What I required was the chance to demonstrate it. She, with tears in her eyes, she nodded. You've demonstrated it. You have unquestionably demonstrated it. 5 years after that initial terrible meal, I co-lead the CEO of We at Whitmore Properties have ventured into green building and residential development programs, as well as reasonably priced homes initiatives. Our business is more than merely more lucrative, more moral, more varied, better reflecting the communities that we cater to. James and I have created a marriage founded on respect for one another and common objectives. His relatives have discovered to view me as the invader rather than Thesamian who preserved their heritage and changed it into something more substantial. More than they had ever thought. However, this is what I want you to comprehend. This narrative isn't really about retaliation or demonstrating anyone wrong. It has to do with not acknowledge the limits of others on your capacity. Turning is the key. Turning challenges into opportunities and applying use rejection as motivation to achieve your goals. The Whitmores believed they could ignore me due to my origins and identity from. They observed my history as a weakness rather than acknowledging it as a power. They failed to remember that hunger and tenacity are stronger than hereditary privilege. I didn't prevail by destroying them. I prevailed by constructing. I got myself up. I didn't ruin their empire. I made it larger. I didn't take their location. I made my own space and made it essential. Thus, this is my suggestions for everyone who has ever heard they're not intelligent or good enough. Sufficient. Not deserving enough. Show the mistake by demonstrating your correctness. Don't squander time and effort defending their views. Use that enthusiasm to go above and beyond their anticipations. If they refuse to offer, make your own table. A seat at theirs for you. Make your own chances if they refuse to open doors for you. And never ever let anybody else to determine your value. Because at the conclusion of ultimately, success isn't determined by what they consider you. It all comes down to your opinion of oneself. Additionally, if you are aware of your own value, once anything has been constructed using your hands and no one can take that away from your own thinking. That's how a Southern girl side of Chicago joined the ownership of $1 billion conglomerate. Not by chance your relationships or getting married properly, but means of strategy, intelligence, and the total rejection of other people's description of my potential. They believed I was being rejected. Rather, they were only creating space for me to reject their shortcomings and construct anything superior. They believed they could shatter me, but they simply made me more powerful. If this tale motivated you to smash that and never give up on yourself, for more, click the like button and subscribe. Tales about overcoming hardship to victory. Please leave a remark below. What's your greatest comeback tale? I read each and every